All right, so a bit of breaking news, or at least it appears to be breaking news coming out of Berea, and it's not good news, I believe, or at least I don't think it will bode to be good news. And that news is according to Mary Kay, it appears that the Browns and Nick Chubb are not going to go for a reunion this offseason. Um, to quote it, and I'll put the quote up, it's the end of an era in Cleveland, and it's sad that it's going to end this way. The face of the franchise since he rumbled through the doors in 2018. Chubb should have finished his career with the team that drafted and developed him, but the crushing knee injury thwarted those plans. Like Joe Thomas before him, Chubb truly meant it when he said he wanted to finish his career in Cleveland. He's brown and orange through and through and would never consider asking to be traded. I feel like that is intentionally put in there. Chubb has stated unequivocally since the late last season that he wanted to come back, but he is probably not going to happen. The Browns gave him last season to return from the injury, make more than $2 million, and walk away with some grace and dignity despite being the shadow of his former self. But Chubb, a freak of nature with superhuman traits, has vowed to be better in his second season since coming out from his 2 surgeries, and some teams are likely willing to give him a chance. Here's hoping that Chubb, who embodied everything good about the Browns, finds a great new home and finishes his career on a strong note. This comes from Mary Kay Cabot. And the reason I take this very seriously, because I know I'm going to say Mary Kay, people are going to have their opinions about it because people have opinions about Mary Kay. She usually does not speak this definitively about something unless she is sure about whatever it is that she is speaking on. And she is speaking definitively about this Nick Chubb thing. She's not saying she thinks it's the end of the Nick Chubb era. She said it's the end of the Nick Chubb era. And it's sad it's going to have to end this way, full stop. There's no way to misinterpret that unless this article was written in a greater context than what can explain it. It seems like they're going to move on from Nick Chubb. Now, there are 2 ways to look at this, right? There is the pure business way to look at it, right? Nick Chubb has not lived up to being Nick Chubb since coming back from that knee injury. He is getting to an age where running backs tend to fall off a cliff, and he has had an amount of knee surgeries that tend to bode badly for running backs trying to come back from such a thing. And that it no longer makes sense to pay Nick Chubb what you would have to pay him to keep him on the roster. And if we're just looking at this analytically, I can understand how you get to that place. And that is the strictly business way of looking at it. Me personally, I think this is a mistake. I made a video saying that this would be a mistake if the Browns chose to go this way. It looks like this is the direction that they're choosing to go, and I'm going to be vocal about this. I think this is a mistake. I think letting go Nick Chubb is one underestimating his ability to come back and underestimating what Nick Chubb and his importance is to whatever it is that you're trying to build in Cleveland. Like if you want to build a culture in Cleveland, if you want to build a way of doing things in Cleveland, I think retaining guys like Nick Chubb matters. Now, don't get me wrong here. I don't think the Browns season is going to be a disaster because they didn't retain Nick Chubb, because who knows what Nick Chubb was going to be able to bring you on the field, and this is a strong running back class, and all of that is true. But I would have liked to see what Nick Chubb can offer you on the field this year, a year or 2 removed from that knee injury. I would have liked to see Nick Chubb be given that opportunity and be given that opportunity by the Cleveland Browns. Who knows? It might be that this is the end of Nick Chubb's career and he's not going to be very useful after this. And that would be a very sad story because Nick Chubb deserved a lot better in his career than what he got. So I don't feel good about this. I hate that we're doing this when there's this much uncertainty with Miles. Like there's the potential that you're not going to have Miles. You're not going to have Nick Chubb. And say what you want about Nick as a player at this point. I think there's still something that he can get out of himself that he wasn't able to reach last year. And I thought he was on the way to showing that at the end of last season, to be honest with you. So if Nick Chubb pops up somewhere and he plays well, I'm not going to be surprised by it. Like, I don't think this is the right thing to do from a locker room standpoint. I don't think it's the right thing to do from a on the field standpoint. I think giving up on Nick Chubb early is a mistake. I think letting him go now when it's convenient will ultimately prove to be a mistake. And, right now, like, I just feel bad for, Browns fans and fellow Browns fans, like, because right now you're already living with people throwing Baker Mayfield in your face if you're a Browns fan. The Deshaun Watson thing gets thrown in your face if you're a Browns fan. And you're potentially staring down the barrel of having to watch two of the players that made all of the bullshit that you had to deal with during that era worth it, right? Throughout all the up and downness with Baker Mayfield, throughout all the up and downness with Deshaun Watson. The two players who consistently showed up and made it worth it were 95 and 24. And you're potentially staring down the barrel this offseason of seeing both those guys in different uniforms. That's a crushing blow. Like, if you make those moves this offseason, you better be sure about your ability to draft and sign your way out of this mess if you're Andrew Berry, if you're the Cleveland Cavaliers. Yeah. I mean, not the Cleveland Cavaliers, my bad. I was thinking about the Cavs for a second. If you're the Browns. Yeah, man, I don't feel good about this. I don't think it's a good decision. I hate that it's come to this. And I just wish that there was a way that the Browns can figure this thing out with Nick Chubb. But it seems like the only way we're going to get those two to come together is if nobody wants Nick Chubb in free agency. And I don't anticipate that being the case. Yeah, I'm not happy with this. I hope they're able to bring him back. I hope I get surprised in March and the Browns do bring back Nick Chubb and we still get to have him in Cleveland. Even if he's not going to be the same level of player, I think there's still stuff he can provide for this franchise. Hopefully things end on good terms so Nick Chubb can be an alumni and be a contributor after his career is over. But yeah, man, it's unfortunate. It is super unfortunate. Now, what does this do for what the Browns' future planning is? Well, what this signifies for sure is that the Browns are going to look for a 3-down bag in this year's draft class. They see it as the perfect time and opportunity to go after a 3-down bag. Which means I would prepare for the Cleveland Browns to select a running back as early as the second round. I had this conversation on Q and Kobe earlier, but I would entertain if Ashton Jeanty fell past like 15, and if you're the Browns, moving up from 33 to go pick up Ashton Jeanty, because if you're talking about losing Nick Chubb, what Nick Chubb was at the peak of his powers was a running back that could carry an offense. While this class has a lot of really good running backs, I think there is one guy who has the potential to carry an offense. That's Ashton Jeanty. And if you can leave this draft class with Abdul Carter or Travis Hunter, if you fall in love with Cam Ward and you leave with Cam Ward, and then Jeanty, I think a lot of people would be excited about that. And can be excited about this clearly new era that the Cleveland Browns are stepping into. I think also with not bringing Chubb back, it signals that there's going to be a changing of the guard relatively soon when it comes to who is the standard bearers in the locker room for the Cleveland Browns. I think they're going to try to get younger. I think some of these names that the Browns have had on their roster for a long time are going to get shifted. And this is signaling a larger change because, I mean, they've talked about it so often, how important Nick Chubb is to what they want to do. And if they're going to be willing to let him go, that means that what they're trying to do is changing. So we'll see how that goes. But yeah, man, I can't sit here and tell you I'm happy about this development or excited about this development. All I can offer you is to look at this from all different angles, tell you what the perspective is of the people who make this decision. If you think that's a good perspective and a good reasoning, then that's fine. But I can also only share how I feel. And right now, you're telling me Nick Chubb's not going to come back. You're telling me it's possible that Miles might not play this year for your team. You got to do something to make me believe that we're going in the right direction. And right now, no Nick Chubb, no Myles Garrett doesn't feel like you're going in the right direction. Like, is drafting a quarterback really going to change it if you don't really believe that quarterback can be in the answer? Like, if you're just doing it to try to check off a box? Are we going in the right direction? Are we making the right moves? Do we have the right people in place? I don't know. I'm not a fan of moving on from Chubb. Understand the business reasons why they would do it. I know somebody's going to throw that at me and say, hey, how could you not understand? He's over 30, this and that. Sure, but I don't mind betting on Nick Chubb. I will always bet on Nick Chubb as long as he is under, 35. I'm going to bet on him because he has paid off for this team. So, yeah. It's a bold move, man. It's a bold move. I hope that it goes a different way, that they do bring back Nick Chubb. They're probably going to look for a replacement in the draft. And if you're going to try to replace Nick Chubb in the draft, you should replace him with the second-round pick or maybe even consider trading into the first to do it because Nick Chubb's not somebody you could just replace with the third-round pick, especially with the state of the Browns' run game. So we'll see. We'll see. This offseason that I keep mentioning is one of the most difficult off seasons to manage for a general manager that I've ever seen. Keeps getting more difficult for Andrew Berry. I wonder if he can dig himself out of it. We'll see. Y'all let me know what y'all think in the comment section down below. Do you think Nick Chubb's gone for sure? Are you a believer in the Mary Kay report like I am? Let me know what you think of all of it in the comment section below. Y'all have a great day. Have an even better night. Peace.